Hey everybody, it's Thunder in the spirit of Crazy Horse with Thunder Vision. Little play on words there. Well, I just thought I'd cover a few things today. First, I want to say that I found a place in Arizona. Remember, I was talking about looking for a place, and I have a place offered to me in Arizona near the Grand Canyon. I'll go into that after at the end of this video. Just wanted to let you know to stay tuned. So what do we see right now going on in the world with this latest incursion? First, let's cover this incursion of the U.S. into the territorial waters of China and the islands that China has built in the South China Sea. Supposedly, by some accounts, they have landing strips on them and military stuff, and none of it's been proven really, but remember I talked about this before, that the U.S. was going to go and cruise around in their little boats, their little guided missile destroyers. The Lawson went through there, L-A-S-S-E-M, the Lawson, to irritate them, to irritate the Chinese. What other reason would they do it? They're flexing their muscles again. They're doing the same stupid things that they've been doing for the last time immemorial, but really ramping up in the last 10 years, and particularly I'll get that out, in the last let's say 2 years, with their hegemonic hubris and their taking down of sovereign states and assassinating the leaders therein and humiliating them. I think that the blowback, the word that comes to my mind is blowback. And the reason that word comes to mind is because even though the Chinese didn't do anything apparently, except they did shadow the ship with their own destroyers, and they did warn that they warned the Lawson that they were out of line and that they were illegal, and they called the ambassador that's in their country, the U.S. ambassador, and raised hell. But this just goes to show you the continuing stupidity and recklessness, lawless recklessness of the powers that are running the United States of America and the West and NATO and that whole crew. They like to antagonize people. They like to push people. And the blowback from it will be, like I said before in a previous video, circular. I was talking about the martial arts and how sometimes when people, the Chinese view is on a lot of stuff is chi, energy, and a circular motion. And when somebody pushes you, you don't push back right away. You kind of use their own energy and turn it around on them, and it bites them in the ass. They're subdued by their own energy, their own foolishness, and that's exactly what China is going to do here. And there is going to be blowback off this, and it's like America pissing in the wind and having it blow back in their face. That's what it's going to be like, and that's what's happening in Syria right now. They pissed in the wind there, and uh, look what happened. I mean, they're on this Plan A thing, you know. I'll call it Plan A for Assad. Okay, Assad must go. Assad must go, over and over and over again. And their plan hasn't worked out so far, and Russia has grabbed the mantle of the Middle East and taken charge of that whole area. And this just left the neocons and the warmongers and the central bankers and everything in America who had an agenda to destabilize Assad and take him out through their proxy terrorist armies. Now they're seething mad. And speaking of blowback, the blowback from that whole scene, them trying to destabilize Assad for the last, 3-4 years with proxy terrorist groups, has caused a massive, as we can see, a massive influx of millions of refugees in Europe, fleeing that barbaric scene and causing havoc in Europe because people are now going to the far right almost in a nationalistic fervor, buying guns, putting up fences. There's clashes, there's arson, there's all kinds of things going on in the countries now where these refugees are going, and it's liable to bring down the EU. It could very well bring down the EU. And there's nobody to blame here. You can't really blame the refugees because they're just trying to escape a horrendous situation. Like one of the latest incidents of 1,000 women and children being captured by ISIL and sold as sex slaves. They've taken these 8-year-old girls, 9, 10-year-old girls, and they raped them several times, and then they sell them on the slave market. So that's some of the blowback that the West, that's some of the horrific stuff that the West has created with their CIA machine, their black ops, unconventional warfare, CIA, dark territory machine, death machine, destabilization machine, propaganda machine. That's another thing. Along with this blowback, and in order to cover their ass and to make them look good and make them look like the bad, they're not the bad guys. They got a campaign going through all medias, most medias that are beholding to them in all different kinds of countries. They're trying to smear Russia and the fact that Russia is taking out the bad guys. And these different stories pop up about, oh yeah, Russia bombed a Syrian hospital. But yet, the West's ally or proxy puppet, Saudi Arabia, just blew up another Doctors Without Borders hospital. And that's a fact. Now, this other thing can't be proven at all, that the Russian airstrikes are killing civilians. And they're also adding to that they're driving civilians out. No, that isn't what drove the civilians out or caused the refugee thing. It was like I said before, it was the actions of the West with their terrorist armies. So if the West says it's black, it's really white. And if the West says it's white, it's really black. That's psychological operations 101. And that's unconventional warfare 101. That's what it's all about. Okay. Now I could just say, I'll just say at this point that the blowback that's coming off all this stuff is a bitch. And it's going to catch up with everybody. It is catching up with everybody. And people are starting to realize that the West or the USA might not be right here. There is some awakening going on. Even on CNN, I've seen interviews. And again, I don't watch TV. I look at some of these interviews on the internet. I'll just look at pieces of them. But people are starting to get news or starting to question, why is it that if Putin is attacking the terrorists that they're making him such a bad guy? Because these same terrorists, aren't these the ones they're saying, these people that are waking up are saying, aren't these the ones that the West has told us all along that are bad and that are doing all these bad things and come over here and get us and kill us and do bad things to us? So why is it so bad that Putin's over there? Well, it isn't. The only bad thing about it is that it's pulling covers on the USA's proxy army and where they're putting all the taxpayers' money into supporting terrorists that they say are going to come over and kill these very same taxpayers. It's incredible, isn't it? And it's really sad that people aren't aware of what's really going on and that they're just now maybe waking up a little. And they're not awake about anything. I mean, if we got the financial situation. I saw a thing today, let's jump to that for a second. I saw a thing today on the Kaiser report, which is on RT, which I recommend highly. That talks about financial things. It's one of the few truthful shows, okay, that you can look at and get good information from. And they were discussing on there that the reason that bankers don't go to jail, one of the reasons that all these bankers are getting off, or how they're getting through this loophole, is every time they pool a jury, all this financial stuff about derivatives and stock market and dividends and all these, it's almost like legalese. It's almost like lawyers speak. Nobody can understand it. Nobody can understand how it works. And so in order to bring in a guilty verdict, they have to understand it. And nobody out there is intelligent enough or privy enough to understand how financial systems work and how these banksters are looting the people. Now, they may understand that they're looting the people, but they don't understand how they're doing it. And unless they understand how they're doing it and the whys and wherefores, then these people are going to continually get off because juries just can't assimilate or understand the financial system. Now, can any of us really? I mean, and the reason that we can't is that they're not going by the rules anymore. They're making up their own rules as they go along, and they're making up all kinds of different things that they're doing things they've never done before. The central banks are doing quantitative easing, printing money out of thin air, not having interest rates staying at zero for years, all this fiat currency that's exiting and going out and floating around the world. And all of this stuff is so complex It's so complex. It's like if you took, it's like a complex lawlessness or burglary or something that you can't figure out how it was done or if it was done or why it was done, but you just know it was done. So that's the problem here. Nobody has enough smarts or can rub two brain cells together to realize that it doesn't matter how it was done, that it was done, that money's laundered and that people are robbed and 401k pensions are disappearing. So they're getting away with it by legal loopholes. Just like they don't live, the powers to be and the government and the bankers don't go to jail because they don't have rules and laws. The only rules and laws are for the lower class, the middle class, the poor. And they're being subjugated and tracked and watched and monitored daily. And that's the perfect segue for me to jump into this other subject that I want to talk about today, which is the massive amounts of security and not security. It's not even security, it's surveillance. I went into the store the other day and I was doing a shopping and I used my card as usual. Swiped my card, which is a card that's associated with Social Security and direct deposit. Anyway, I swiped my card and the computer was like taking a long time on the little stand there by the checkout. And I asked the checkout girl, I go, what's the problem? Why is it taking so long? And she goes, well, because they're putting in that new system. I go, new system? What new system? She goes, the new system for the chips. I thought, for what, potato chips? No, RFID or some kind of chips that's now on credit cards. Now, I didn't know. I don't have credit cards because I don't have major credit cards. I don't have credit cards like that have chips. And I go, what are you talking about, chips? And she goes, well, haven't you heard they're putting them on all the cards? They're issuing them to everybody. And I go, well, what's that for? And she goes, additional security. And I go, no, that's not what it's for. What it's for is additional surveillance to know exactly what we're doing. And she goes, oh, whatever. That's how stupid these people are. I mean, you could put a barcode on their fucking forehead and they would oh, whatever. So I don't know what this is all about. All I know is that I don't plan on getting, if they mail me a card with that on there, I'll just use it as I always do. I mean, what are you going to do? What choice do you have? Isn't it kind of like that scripture from the Bible that says you shall not buy or sell except under the mark of the beast? 666, baby. That's kind of what it is, and that's exactly what it is. And there is a lot of Bible prophecy that's coming true right now in the Middle East and all this stuff. Of course, other people have prophesied this stuff too, like the Hopis. But that's what's happening. That's how it is now. So that's another kind of blowback. A blowback from the complacency of the hundreds of millions of people that stand by idly with their heads stuck up where the sun don't shine. The sun don't shine. And they let this shit happen. I have compassion, though, for people that Even though they're stupid and they don't know, I still have compassion. That's why I do these videos. That's why I do these videos, is to give some kind of a truthful account as to what's happening out there, so that people can listen and form their own opinion, look up some of the stuff I'm talking about, because you got to dig for this stuff. You got to dig for truth. Like I said before, you just can't take the main scum media prostitute story. They're all prostitutes for the government. They all parrot the official government line. They're given their stories. There is no more investigative journalism. There is no more free press. There is no more independent press. There is no more independent thinking. It's all controlled. It's all controlled, just like your mind. So, those are some things to think about. You know, I saw some of the pictures in Syria. I might put one of the pictures as a, I might put one of those pictures up here for the thumbnail for this video. I don't know, but some of these cities that were nice, beautiful, kind of like beautiful cities like in Syria they're mystical looking and nice and modern mixed with ethnic or cultural iconic landmarks and that type of thing. I'm seeing pictures of what ISIS has done over there and what that war has done, and it's like a ghost town. It's like a friggin' war zone. It is a war zone. But it was just a neighborhood, a nice, quiet, beautiful neighborhood with shops and everything, and now you should see it. I might put a picture, one of the towns over there. You don't even want to live in a town after you got ISIL and a bunch of people shelling each other and throwing grenades and airstrikes coming in, and you don't even want to be anywhere near it. It's the most horrific looking thing, burned out buildings and crumbling walls and crumbling people and dead bodies everywhere, and everybody's possession looted and thrown in the streets and defecated upon, and just, oh my God, it's horrible. And these are the guys that the great, United States of America government, NATO, the West, is mainly causing most of this stuff. If you look at the big picture like a hawk does, a hawk flies high and sees with an all-seeing eye. Okay. The hawk flies high and sees with an all-seeing eye. And it's kind of like a 360-degree view of everything. And so that's what you got to look at here. And when you look at this, when you take that kind of viewpoint on things, the big picture, flying high like a hawk and looking at the big picture, you can readily see who's causing the problems. It's the one destabilizing. Maybe the Muslims, when they coin that phrase, America is the great Satan, maybe that's not too far from the truth. Maybe that's, Satan's just a metaphor for evil and materialistic greed, and so that's how some of the people in the Middle East see them. People like in Yemen that are being bombed over there, that from Saudi Arabia, the proxy ally, or the not proxy ally, the proxy army, the proxy executioner, against Yemen for them getting rid of their puppet dictator that was installed by the West. Now they're paying, you hear some of these stories about, oh, there was a mistake where they took out a hospital. Well, on this front, Saudi Arabia is the Saudis. These people are really dark, okay? They're really dark. They're over there purposely targeting civilians. Purposely. They pick out a wedding party where people are having a good time and blow it to smithereens with kids, women, everything. They pick out a market where people are doing their shopping and target it and blow it to smithereens. They pick out a place where, a subdivision where people are living, just ordinary civilians, and blow it to smithereens. They have blocked all ships going into Yemen that deliver goods and services and food and medicine. And recently they blew up Doctors Without Borders, like I mentioned before. And all these prostitutes are whining and crying and flipping out about Russia, who doesn't do any of these things, but they say does. But when somebody is obviously doing these things, where are they then? Well, they're not to be seen because they're parroting the official line of the USA, and the USA is in leagues with Saudi Arabia, and so they're told to stay off that subject. See how crooked everything is, people? How dark? How yin's flipping to yang, or yang's flipping to yin, and how it's just going to get worse. You think it's going to get better? You think all of a sudden Putin's trying to make it better. He's trying to stand up. I mean, Putin and China sit back with their arms crossed, and they just look at things and they go, well, yeah, that's what they're doing to people. They're destabilizing governments, and they're humiliating the leaders and murdering them and raping them and hanging them and doing all kinds of weird atrocities. So that could happen to us, they're thinking. There could be an incursion of that into our country through these terrorists that are being funded by and paid as mercenary killers and rapists and child rapists and slave marketeers. That could come into our country. And so if it comes into our country, then it could destabilize us. So this is all blowback. Blowback's a bitch. When somebody does something that is out of line, lots of people get blowback from it, and that blowback doesn't necessarily hurt the ones that are doing it, but it will eventually, and it'll bring them to their knees. Just like the Roman civilization came to its knees and fell and dispersed into a million freaking pieces, the USA will be brought to their knees, and the West will be brought to their knees, because they're doing the same thing that the Romans did. The Romans fell because they dispersed their forces all around the world and had bases all around the world and tried to support these bases, and that's exactly what the U.S. is doing, dispersing all their forces in NATO around the world and establishing all these bases, and it takes money to keep all these bases going. Don't think for a minute that Putin and the president of China doesn't take notice of what's going on and isn't making plans to end it all. because they know that there's nothing short of having to end it all that's going to stop these people from continuing on in their crazed, insane plight or agenda. As long as they have a breath in them, these insane maniacs will propagate evil and destabilization in the world, and that's what some of the other world powers are seeing on all levels, financial and military and the whole ball of wax. So what we got right here, people, is an awakening of sorts, or a ramping up of sorts way beyond the precarious position that we were in during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So, we'll leave it there today on that, on Thunder's visions. It's better than television. I thought that was kind of a little play on word, Thunder Vision. You know, I don't know what I'm going to name this video. But let's shift gears here, and like I talked about at the beginning of this video, I got Thunder got notified from a list that he was on in Arizona that I thought I'd never hear from, because you have to be on it for years to get housing. But all of a sudden I've been praying, and the people in the Campfire Council have been sending me good energy. And I got a call that said, you have an apartment ready for you, available on such and such a day, which is coming up real soon. And I went, thank you, Great Spirit. Unbelievable. Again, it's in northern Arizona, right where I wanted to go, and it's near the Grand Canyon, amongst hills with pine trees on them. Now, I might need to do a little fundraiser here. I have been putting a little capital aside, as much as you can do on a fixed income. But I know people out there donate, and I want to thank you for all the donations I get. But right now, I might have to do a little push here, a little fundraiser to come up with about, maybe, I'd say about $400 is what I need right now. Now, I'm not worried about it, and I'm not putting pressure on anybody, because look what happened. Great Spirit provided for me. But I thought I would put out the word. And if you want to donate 5, 10, or however many, like I say, I don't need that much. Every little bit helps, will help. Because there's things like transferring utilities and going 300 and 400 miles and moving, your stuff and all this stuff. It's expensive. So anyway, I'm going to put a link to Help Thunder, and it's the Campfire Council's website, not the community. And there's a PayPal button on there, and you can donate if you want to, or if you can't afford it, or if you can't find it in your heart to do that, well then maybe you could just send me some prayers and or brainstorm and make some suggestions about possibilities on the moving. I need to move a studio apartment about, I don't know how far it is to Flagstaff from San Diego. I don't know, figure it out. 600-800 miles, I don't know, maybe less. So anyway, I'll leave it there today. Just wanted to let the people in the council know, especially because they've been watching me talk about this for a while. And, am I happy about it? Well, I never get overly joyed about anything until I'm actually there. I learned a long time ago that you never count your chickens, or you never get too... You try to keep that balance. No, I'm not doing backflips or anything, because I'm not there yet, am I? And anything could arise. I just go with what but It seems like a good indication. Seems like a good sign, because I also got offers from a relative in Las Vegas too, on a little piece of property out there. So I'm kind of leaning towards the Grand Canyon thing now. Whatever it is going to be, it's got to be soon, and I got to come up with some additional, as Lame Deer would say, green frog skins. That's what he called money. Green frog skins, because that's what it looks like, doesn't it? Anyway, I'll leave it there today. This is Thunder. Blessings to you all, and keep the faith, people. We're liable to see something big here, and hopefully that something big will cause a mass shift in consciousness, and hopefully things will get better. Anyway, I'm out of here. This is Thunder. Happy trails to you until we meet again. Later.